Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. This is your feed for all things food and pop culture. Thanks for joining in. Just a reminder to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, anywhere you get your social media, and also to follow the podcast anywhere you get your podcast and listen to those. Hit like and subscribe to know when new episodes are coming out. My guest for today is I met this guest at Podfest in Orlando. Now, if you don't know what Podfest is, it's like, I think, Comic-Con for indie podcasters. It's the first time I went. I had a great time. And she caught me at lunch and we talked a little bit about veganism. And then I told her what my podcast was about. And she said, there's some really cool movies that have some hidden vegan messages that I'd love to talk to you about. I said, that sounds fun. So welcome to the pod, Heather Zeitzwolfe.
Hey, thanks for having me. And you know what really caught my eye was that great graphic that you have for your podcast and the Eat My Content. And I'm all about pop culture and this element of food being in there. That's very interesting. I like this. Okay.
Oh,
So
well,
we're gonna
thank
have
you.
fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is normally my podcasts are like, outlined and structured, but this is going to be off the cuff, and I think it's going to be really, really fun. And when we talked at Podfest down in Orlando, it just sparked a really cool conversation, and I thought, man, this is going to be a really fun podcast. I'm looking forward to it. But before we get into all the movies with hidden vegan messages, I want to talk about you a little bit. I did a little bit of research on you, and you are what they would call a Renaissance multi-hyphenate person there. You are a entrepreneur, you're an independent business owner, you're a mentor, coach, consultant. You actually did some talks at Podfest. I did not see those, unfortunately, but were also like a hype man for the panels. So tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do. I know you help like vegan food trucks specifically kind of get their business off the ground. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So thank you. I've been involved with Podfest is a great place to go if you're interested in podcasting or even in public speaking, content creation, all of that. So I'm happy that this was your first year. That's awesome that you went to Podfest. And yes, I do a lot of different things there. I've dipped my toe into emceeing and speaking and presenting and all of that. I love it. Podfest is amazing. So I'm glad that you went. As far as me, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in my 50s and I like to reinvent myself every so often. I've always been kind of wacky. My first career was a clown that I started at 3 years old. So my mom was like, you can never take the clown out of me. And then when I told her I was going to be a CPA, she was like, what? Accounting just doesn't seem like that fits my personality, but I'm a nerd at heart. So I appreciate the comment of Renaissance woman. I have reinvented myself many times and I love to dabble in things because I think life is all about having fun and learning and always stretching yourself. So as far as my business goes, I started a business uh, in my 50s. I went back to school in my 40s and got my degree in accounting. Before that, I was a project manager. I started marketing and advertising. I have a degree in fashion design. So I've kind of reinvented myself many times. And now I work with a lot of creatives and help them bring more profit into their business. And as a vegan, I've decided that I really want to impact the world greater by having more people try vegan food that haven't before, because sometimes people think that, oh, it sounds disgusting or whatever, or maybe they're like, I can't give up cheese or whatever it is. So I decided my best way of supporting people in this would be to support businesses that are vegan food businesses and help them elevate themselves. And a lot of times these restaurants, they close, food trucks close, and we want to keep their doors open so people can try their delicious food. So now I'm branching out and working with food trucks as well. So creatives, food truck people, I work with non-vegans as well. So if you like my vibe, we should talk. Maybe all that.
And you're known online as the Savvy Frugal Vegan. And your CPA firm is the Vegan CPA. Is that right?
Well, I'm known as the vegan CPA.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
my business is Zeitzwolfe Accounting, and I do tax and bookkeeping services along with. I also do business consulting, profit consulting. I've put on group programs. I've put on events. So I like to dabble in lots of things.
Yeah, you got a lot of different irons in the fire, and you are all over the place, and it's fantastic. And accounting, kind of, first impression, I would not have thought accounting. When you think accounting, you think, tweed suits and
I know.
and with the elbow patches right there, and really buttoned up, but
Yeah, yeah.
you have this fun kind of laid back attitude, and I'm sure a lot of people, going to the accountant can't, it's not fun all the time, but you seem to make it fun and enjoyable, and getting to know people. So that's really cool that you're into all that, and elevating other businesses by helping them get off the ground. I think is great, and I'm all about supporting local businesses, vegan or otherwise, and
Yeah.
making sure that they're able to succeed in a very competitive marketplace. So that's fantastic. Now, veganism for you is really important. It's the your identity and kind of the crux of who you are. Have you always been vegan? Like, at any point did you eat meat? And then what was the turning point? What was the catalyst that turned you from omnivore to vegan?
Yeah. Well, I've been vegan almost 20 years now, and I was exposed to vegetarianism as a kid in the 70s. My brother was a vegetarian, so it wasn't completely an unknown to me. I knew about factory farming and the atrocities of fur coats and all these things. And you can turn a blind eye. It's like, oh, okay, pass me the chicken. It's like you hear these things, but then it's like you don't make any changes in your life. But I think sometimes it has to happen at the right time. So my husband and I decided we wanted to lose some weight. We thought, okay, well, go vegan, in January, like, and just and we kind of slowly got ourselves into it where we like gave up a particular type of, meat or dairy or whatever each week. And I was always lactose intolerant, so it wasn't hard for me, but my husband was really into cheese and stuff. But so we gradually did it. Each week we gave up something. And then once all the meat like got out of my body, like about a month later, you start to feel completely different. And I started seeing the world in a new set of eyes. And suddenly I was able to look at the stuff around factory farming with a different set of eyes and be like, wow, this is horrible. Like when you're eating meat, you're kind of like, okay, whatever, you try to put it away. But then when you're not, you can actually like see the world for what it is. So that's why I find some of these films very interesting around cannibalism, because it's twisting what we're thinking about a little bit, like and we can go deeper into that. So I don't mean to jump ahead.
No, 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 you're good. You're good. So for you, veganism kind of started off for you as a health choice, right? To
Yeah,
lose a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit of
totally.
weight, yeah, lose a little bit of weight and this and that, and then at some point it turned, and it's more of a philosophical choice to be vegan. And there are, I want to say, degrees or maybe levels of veganism. Like you said, you started off as vegetarian, right? So vegetables, maybe some dairy, and then there's vegan where there's no meat at all, and then I don't know. There's this other like higher level of vegan where they don't even eat honey or anything like
Yeah,
with
that's
bees
a
and stuff
that's
like
a
that.
true. Yep, that's a true vegan, and would be that's like hardcore vegan, no honey. Yeah, I mean, I think you don't have to be ruled by labels, and certainly do what works for you. My whole thing is like I don't want to pass judgment on anyone because I used to eat meat as well.
Sure.
And I think as much as we can do for the animals and the environment, I know some people that are part-time vegans. That's fine. I mean, at least they are lessening their impact. I don't want to be that person that's like this militant, angry vegan that's like, oh my, what are you doing? And there's plenty of those people out there, and more power to them. I mean, they have their place as well. But I want to, just like I want to make uh, finances in your business more approachable, I want to do the same thing for veganism. So I think as being a vegan, I'm like a spokesperson for the brand of vegan. So I want to make sure that people are interested in the brand and not, uh, think like, oh my God, I don't even want to
Right.
try veganism.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that do meatless Mondays kind of
Yeah.
thing, and kind of step into that a little bit to impact. Taking in less meat is better for the environment overall. So, how would you like? For me, I eat meat pretty regularly. How would you suggest somebody that maybe wants to make the turn to vegetarianism or veganism, but is having that really hard time of giving up meat? What are some ways that we can turn to veganism and maybe not miss the meat so much?
Yeah. Well, one great place to start is YouTube. So you can go to my YouTube channel, Savvy Frugal Vegan. There's also other great YouTubers that talk about making that transition and making it a little bit easier. But there are tons of hacks out there. I'm not like a great supporter of eating a lot of processed foods,
Mm.
but meat in the way that it's pretty processed already. So if you can try some maybe vegan substitutes that are like meat substitutes, that might be a good place to start. Swap things out. I always try to like, how can I veganize this? Like, look at something that I liked and then veganize it. Find, that's why I love the whole idea of the food trucks. It's like find some place that maybe it's local that you can try something, and uh, get to know other people, go to the place, ask them questions like, I want to try veganism, but I'm not sure. A lot of times people will say, like, oh, I tried going vegan, but the cheese was terrible. Okay, well, it's not going to taste like regular cheese, especially not the cheap stuff, but there are more expensive replacements that are made out of cashews that it's really good. You can make it yourself, but use the internet. I mean, there's so many resources on the internet. You can go to local meetups, like check like Eventbrite or Meetup, one of those, and there might be like a vegan potluck or something that you could try. So there's lots of ways to dip your toe into that, and connect with other vegans. Vegans are like, they love to help other people go vegan or try vegan or suggest things, and there's all these different hacks that you can do. So, um,
Sharing
you know,
recipes, all that.
yeah, yeah. And really, I mean, just think about it. It's like fruits and vegetables, nuts, legumes, like things that you should be eating anyway. So, it's,
Just more of it.
yeah, just more of it. Yeah.
Excellent. So let's get to why we're here and why I suggested that we make this podcast together, because I thought it was really hilarious. We were at Podfest, we were on our lunch break, and I was eating, and you saw my logo on my shirt, which thank you so much for saying you like the logo. And we struck up a conversation, and you found out I did food and pop culture, and you're like, hey, there's some movies that have a hidden vegan message. And I'm like, really? Like, I mean, I watch a lot of foodie movies and TV shows, but I've never really watched one that was kind of explicitly vegan, or even thought about having a vegan message. So let's talk about that veganism in pop culture. And you mentioned talking about movies, and you mentioned one that just kind of blew my mind during our lunch break. What is that one movie that has that hidden vegan message that people would be surprised about?
Well, one is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's probably the one that you're thinking about. Now, I have to say that I love horror movies. So, and is that the one that I mentioned that?
Yeah, that was the one you mentioned when we
Okay,
were eating lunch.
okay, okay. So I love horror
You,
movies. I do not like, I'm not a violent person at all, but I can take in violence in a movie because I know it's fake. It's like it's doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those people that's like squeamish or anything. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre may not be everybody's cup of tea. I don't know. Have you seen it?
I've seen the older one, the original. I haven't seen
Yeah.
much of
Okay.
the
Yeah, that's
remakes.
the one I'm talking
Is that the
about.
one you're talking about? So
Yes.
so you gotta walk you through this. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a movie with would you say a hidden or just outright vegan messaging in the movie?
Well,
And how?
yeah, so I don't know necessarily if people would even notice it if they're, I mean, it's very subtle. If you're vegan, you definitely notice it.
Okay.
But hopefully it's something that I don't think it was the intention of Toby Hooper, the director.
Sure.
I'd have to dig a little bit deeper to find out. But the idea is in the movie that they are a family that is they're cannibals.
Mm-hmm.
They eat humans and they capture them and bind them. They also there's a room in the house where Leatherface is like, putting the humans onto meat hooks.
Yep.
So it's like they're treating the humans like quote unquote meat. So when you start to think about being a human being treated like quote unquote an animal, there's things that we do to animals that we find horrific if you do it to a human being. But when you start to think about like, but why? An animal has feelings, they feel pain, they feel delight. I mean, like a cow, I don't know if you've seen the footage, but there's like these people that like to play music for cows and like they get the fiddles out and the piano and all that, and the cows will come around and listen to the music. And you could tell that they're really um, very interested and captivated by the music. And these are qualities like about an animal that it's like, wow, they have feelings just like a human being would have. And we have dogs and cats in our home, and we love them like a baby, or like a part of the family. Well, a cow and a dog, there's no real difference as far as like the level of like um emotions and pain that they feel. So when we start to think about like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he's putting this woman up on this meat hook. Well, how is that any different from a cow? So it's kind of twisting your brain to kind of see the world in a different way. But
Yeah.
hopefully when you think about that, like, oh, I'm horrified by that. Okay, yeah, you're horrified by that, but why are you okay with the cow being treated like that? So it's kind of like it's allowing you to sort of see things in a different way. But and I'd say it's a hidden message because most people probably don't see it that way, but maybe they might have an aha moment when they're watching one of these movies like, wait a minute, this is disgusting. Like so I mean, maybe when next time you watch it, maybe you'll have the same kind of feeling. You're like,
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting take. It is talking, like what you're saying. They're treating the humans like animals, and we're horrified by that. I think because we're people, right? And we and we're watching ourselves in that instance. But then you look at factory farming with cows, chickens, and pigs, and it's different, and it's I think part of that is cultural, right? I mean, because
of course, yes.
America is very much a meat eating country. And you talk about, people, we as Americans generally don't eat dogs, but some other cultures do, right? And,
Hmm.
unfortunately, that was brought up in a bad way during this last election cycle. But, there's some cultures that do raise dogs for meat and don't look at it differently as a cow or a pig. What other like pop culture references in veganism? I see you got a book in your hand there, and I see it's all earmarked and bookmarked. I'd love to let you dive into that and discuss some of these things.
Yeah, so this book is called Meat is Murder, which is a Smith song. I don't know if you follow the Smiths, but they he's a vegetarian. He had a song called Meat is Murder, but so I think this is a reference to that, but it says Meat is Murder, and it says an illustrated guide to cannibal culture. So
Wow.
yeah, so this is actually about like pop culture, and it talks about like real life cannibals, like um Jeffrey Dahmer, and then it talks about like Hannibal Lecter, the fake ones, and then it does talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this book as well, and of course movies like Blood Feast, which I love that movie. It's a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. I don't know if you've seen that
I
before.
no, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, okay. Have you seen any of his movies?
I don't think so. None. He doesn't ring a bell to me.
Oh, okay. So Herschel Gordon Lewis was a filmmaker, probably like uh, I want to say like 60s, like
Hmm.
1960s was when he made most of his movies. Very low budget. They were made mostly in Florida, I think. And
Wow.
he would use like red, it almost looked like paint, red paint for blood. And his movies were very I mean, disturbing at the time.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch it, you might be like, "Wow, that's cheesy," but I think they probably like at one point in one of his movies, they cut out a tongue, and they probably used a cow's tongue or something like that, But very disgusting type stuff. And so, Blood Feast is all about this feast that's going to be made with humans, and but he's all of his. I think there's another one called like Color Me Red, which is all about like using blood for paint in a picture. And
Wow.
so anyways, he would also have like interesting music. I think he wrote his own music for the movies. But so he was kind of a renaissance man, Herschel Gordon Lewis. He was a character. But so Blood Feast is another one of those movies where you're like, oh my god, this is so disgusting, and then you're like, oh yeah, they're eating a meal around humans as if they were animals. Another one that comes to mind is The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her
Yeah.
Lover.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was about to mention that one. That one's a classic. I've seen that one a couple of times, and it's a little shocking, right? You watch that movie, and you're at the end of it, they're eating people, and it's wild. So it's a wild movie. I haven't seen that one in a while. I may have to check that one out again. But that one, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and there's this scene in the movie where the couple is stuck in this truck with rotting meat, and they're getting like there's like flies and maggots and all that kind of stuff, and it's really disgusting. And you know it, it's really weird. Like when you become a vegan, you don't have like meat rotting in your house anymore. Like it's just so when you see those kind of things, you're like, oh my god, that's so disgusting. Like when you and again, it's just a different frame of mind. I mean, it like eating things on a bone, like now that just like the idea that just horrifies me, or like something that comes out of an egg, like it's just like, ugh, it's gross. But when you grow up that way and you eat that stuff, it just seems normal. Like it's
sure.
just like, so it's again kind of like you got to kind of tweak the way that you look at the world. And so that's why I love things like cinema and pop culture, because it allows you to give you a visual representation of something and be able to kind of see things in a different way.
Yeah.
um and and it could just be subtle, I mean like there was the Dahmer series that came out recently
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Mhm.
And the whole like, did you see it? Did you watch it?
I did not see that one, no, but I've heard things about it, and heard it was pretty close to r what really happened, and it was pretty horrifying from what a lot of people said.
Yeah, and what was also very interesting about that, I thought they did an excellent job on bringing in how it wasn't just about murdering people, but it was also around uh, racial discrepancy, like
Mhm.
um, unfortunately, a lot of the men that he preyed on, they were from groups that were like from different countries, and
Right.
and so
Marginalized, yeah.
marginalized, yeah, okay. And so unfortunately, they didn't get the same attention from the police as other people, like a white male would have. And he
Right.
got off because he was a white male. And so it really just shows you the disparities of like, um, you know, being from different cultures, or not being a white male in this in the or in the world. But anyways, so that doesn't have anything to do with veganism. That's a sidebar. So anyways, you
Sure.
can cut that if you want. But
It's staying in, it's staying in.
but um but it showed him like, cooking the people on the stove and stuff, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like overly graphic, but that that's what's going on. And then there's the stench that's in the apartment building and stuff. And yeah, again, you kind of think about like, oh my god. And I don't know, I mean, hopefully people listening to this, maybe they'll watch these things with a different set of eyes the next time, and think about like, but what if that was uh a different, like an animal, human. I mean, uh supposedly humans taste like chicken. I don't know. So maybe, I don't know.
I would
Um
imagine humans would be extremely tough. I mean, we're
Maybe.
a lot of muscle, us humans. So I would imagine I would imagine to I don't even know if Spotify's going to let us publish this, but I imagine like eating a human, you'd have to braise it low and slow for a long time just to break up those muscle fibers. Speaking of this kind of weird topic that we're on, have you seen Hannibal, the NBC series,
I have not. That
with Mads
is it good?
Mikkelsen?
Oh.
It was really good, and you want to talk about looking at things differently. Mads Mikkelsen played Hannibal, and it was a serialized TV series. I think it was on for 2 or 3 seasons. And he, would cook people, and they would show. It was pretty graphic for the time. I think it was, I don't know, mid 2000s, something like that. So it was
Oh.
pretty graphic, I thought, for the time for network television. And they would show Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal cooking people, and then and it's the whole scene like it's a cooking show, and you're watching him like, does that lung kind of look good? I mean, it's so weird to watch it, and he's cooking up people, and you're like, that God, he's making that look really delicious, and I don't know how I feel about that.
See? Okay, see, there you go, right? It's like it's kind of a weird, like, m like, twist your mind kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is because we were talking about cinema and arts bringing to light things that you probably wouldn't normally think about. We talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre about the humans being on meat hooks, and then what the difference is between that and factory farming of a cow. I think a lot of people to get to that point have to look at humans and cows being on that same level, and I think that's where a lot of people philosophically disagree. It's like, no,
Right.
they're cows. They're dumb cows, right? And we're humans of a higher intellectual level, and if you talk to some religious scholars, talk about the soul, and animals may not have, and animals don't have souls. So I think to get to that point of being able to look at a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a you know hidden message of veganism and how we should look at food differently is to equate humans and animals on that same level. I don't know. Some people can't get around to that and be like, "Mm, what do you think?"
Yeah, those people probably will not ever go vegan. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe not.
probably.
But I think also though, it's like as a kid, I was never like really that into animals, and when I got married, my husband really wanted to have a cat, and I was just like, ugh, whatever, you're gonna take care of that thing. I'm not doing it. I did not want a cat in my house. Well, we went vegan and got the cat around the same time. And once I like the meat got out of my body, and I was like, I became very attached to this cat, and I started to see every other animal in that cat's eyes. Like, I would look at that cat, I love that cat so much, and then when I would see pictures of animals, I would see that same, like, intense, like, feeling of love and, wanting to live and prance around and not be locked up in a cage, and so it really affected me. And so it maybe, you don't have to start off as an animal lover. And that's the other thing. People say like, "Oh, I'm an animal lover," but then they eat meat. So maybe those people, maybe that they're the ones that we can kind of tap into, because I don't think that people are like evil or anything. They're just
Sure.
growing up the way that they were brought up.
Sure.
It's just a matter of looking at things a little bit differently. But that's very interesting about that Hannibal show. I'll have to check that out because
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where it's streaming offhand, but it's been a few years since it's been out, but it's excellent. I mean, from a crime procedural, it is dark. I mean, it is if you're a fan of horror movies and kind of like that, it is dark and but it's really good. And Mads Mikkelsen is excellent as Hannibal. I don't know how much of him you've seen, but he is great
I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
in that show. So yeah, definitely check it out. Uh I don't know. I feel like we had a really good conversation. This was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed myself. This is the first podcast where I'm kind of like out on a wing and a prayer. I don't have notes next to me, but it was really fun, and I want to thank you so much for being a part of it. I want to roll out the red carpet for you for the last few minutes. Just let people know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and where on socials, websites, any projects you got coming up that you want people to know about that might be in the area of the United States where you are.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Okay. Well, you can find me on YouTube at Savvy Frugal Vegan. And I have a podcast called the Vegan Food Truck Business Podcast. I have to make sure I've got the word business in there. The Vegan Food Truck Business Podcast. And you can find me on Instagram at Savvy Frugal Vegan. And or you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook and contact me. I love to chat with people. And if you've got a podcast and you want to talk about uh, movies, I'm a huge movie nerd. So I love movies. So that's one of my favorite topics. And I don't get to talk about it too much because that's not what my podcast is about. So this is such a delight to be able to talk to you about pop culture and then put some vegan in it there.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, I'd love to have you back on if I happen to catch a movie or watch a TV show and I think, you know what, I think Heather would have some really good feedback on this. I'm gonna shoot you an email and we'll make this maybe a semi-regular occurrence. It'd be fun.
Oh yeah, awesome! I'm up for that.
Yeah. And as the time of this recording, it's tax season, so if you need some taxes done, right? You're working some long hours, I bet.
I am. This is like a little fun, little fun perk for my weekend is to do a podcast. So I get to. I'm standing up. Let's take a break. Yeah.
Take a break from all the 1099s, W-2s, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Heather, thank you so much for being on the pod. I appreciate it. Guys, if you like the podcast, please like and follow, leave a review and a rating. I would really appreciate that. Heather, thanks again, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support.